I'm really, really excited for our guest today. A full disclaimer, Ryan was a client of mine and he has taken it to the next level and jumped into building a lifestyle of his own where he's in command of what his career looks like. So today's guest is super, super amazing because I've seen his journey. You know, he comes out of the entertainment industry and he has been managing people that are hugely successful. The wildly successful Janet Gardner, you know, she has been from Vixen. Anybody who is old as us and we are would remember the 80s band Vixen, who was wildly popular as well. And then he managed the Amazing Kreskin. Anybody who loves magic. Look, when I was a little boy, man, I loved magic. So this was huge when I found out that you were the manager for the Amazing Kreskin. I have so many stories just from my dad alone of meeting him and talking with him in different casinos and whatnot. So that's super, super exciting for me. And then he got to work with Bon Jovi. I mean, who could say that? I mean, there's not many people that can say they worked with Bon Jovi. So I'll let him tell the story of that one. But I'd like for you to invite Ryan Galway and give him a round of applause. I really wish there was a studio so we could do that. But Ryan, man, thank you so much for coming on. Man, I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's been an exciting journey, and I'm excited for your new journey. This is going to be a great thing for you and your listeners. So,
thanks, man. I really
very
appreciate
excited.
it. I really appreciate that.
A lot of storytelling going to happen in today.
Oh, there really, really is. And, you know, like I said in the intro with the full disclosure, you were a client of mine, and we've become very, very good friends throughout that whole process. And I can't be more proud of what you've built. You know, I mean, I didn't want to mention in the intro, you know, Sleepless Life, because I really want you to promote that because it's amazing, man. And seeing that journey from you and, you know, seeing all the successes, it's, you know, I jump for joy for you. I mean, I'm sitting in here, my wife and kids, and I'm like, yeah, because I see what you've done, or you got another contract. I'm like, man, you're killing it. So without further ado, could you kind of walk me through how you got started and just tell the listeners what kind of brought you to creating something of your own and really building a brand of your own?
It was thankful to the wonderful world of COVID, and I don't want to be happy about COVID or that it happened, but there was a lot of tragedy with COVID, but there was also a lot of positivity that happened during that period of time. I mean, people got to spend time with their families. Parents were spending time with their children, which you never see anymore, and it's kind of back to that way now. But it was a moment in time of being able to pause. And me being a concert tour manager, I couldn't tour. You know, my artists, Janet and Kreskin, couldn't go out and do shows. Everything was just like on lockdown. And I knew that the music industry was never going to, especially the touring side, was going to be the same for a long period of time. And there was no outlet for me. You know, I loved doing what I was doing because I'd been working in music for so long, from DJing to managing tours to writing my own music. And it was just a somber time, and I needed an outlet. And that's when you were starting your coaching business and things like that. And I'm like, I hit you up. I'm like, I'm at a loss of what my next step is going to do. I had thoughts of doing a podcast. I had thoughts of wanting to start my own coffee company. And there was just a lot of like, well, I could do this, I could do that. And after like 3 months of not working, I got bored. And I'm like, I need to do something. Something has to change. I can't sit still. I've never been that guy to just sit still. And so the podcast happened first. My podcast called Advancing the Show. And that was basically being able to help and shine a light on how I got started in the music industry and how people had started businesses within that platform and built their brand. Because music is more than just music. It's a business. It's a brand. And that's what I wanted listeners to know that were struggling. When I started, podcasts weren't a thing. You know, it was mostly books. So back in 2009, not only was my father struggling with cancer and I was dealing with that whole thing,
Yeah, it's rough.
I found the outlet of how can I dive into this. And this gets into the whole Bon Jovi story, but back in 2009, I had friended Lorenzo Ponce. Her and I had become friends on Facebook. She's his violin player in his solo band. So her and I had talked back and forth and, talked about a solo record, and she didn't have management. The light bulb went off for me. I'm like, well, I can help. And I just started sending her information. And then I wanted to educate myself more in that space. I'm like, here's an opportunity to work with one of the best, most talented people in the game. So I got a book by Paul Allen called Music Management, I believe was the title. Fantastic book. And I read that thing from front to back, and I tried to find what I could online. And I was really just self-educated in the business and thought, outside the box, how can I help catapult a career? How can I get information out to people and things like that? And widgets back then were a thing. Facebook was still somewhat new. So I remember messaging Lorenza, and I'm like, what about a widget? Would you want a widget? And she goes, what is a widget? So I explained that it's like this mini website that can go on like a MySpace page or a Facebook page, and people can play your music through it and stuff like that. And she's like, that's really cool. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. Had no idea how to build a widget. I'm not a computer guy, but I did. I went on, I researched, I built a widget. We put this whole widget together. People could have a customized URL and all this stuff. So I think we had like 150,000 hits when we launched it. Like the first day. Like number. It was huge. But then Facebook started taking down personal things. You couldn't have a widget on Facebook, and MySpace was dead. And,
you had to pivot.
You're always having to pivot.
Yeah.
So it was a big pivot. But so I ended up working with her for over the course of 3 years. We did a lot of shows together. I managed her merchandise. We opened up for Bon Jovi on several of the 2011 tour. It was the #1 concert tour that year, and I handled the meet and greets. So it was really just a dream come true. Here I'm a guy starting out in music on the #1 concert tour in the world. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. And intimidating at the same time, right?
Absolutely, because I'm still really wet behind the ears. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just winging it, and just doing. But it got to the point where her fans didn't care about the band. They wanted to know me, and they wanted to know her. Because I was the face of the social media part. I was always tweeting and things like that. So it got to a point where it was like, you and Ryan come here, you and Ryan come here. And that was something I wasn't prepared for, because I never wanted to be in the spotlight or needed to be in the spotlight. But it did happen, and it's a lonely existence when that starts to fade away. Mm-hmm. So in 2013, I think we did our last show at the Stanhope House. It's a famous blues venue up in North Jersey. And we just kind of walked away, and it was just a lot. It was taking a toll on her, because she's a first call session player. So like when all the big names need a violin player, she's the one that gets called. Plus, when John Bon Jovi needs her for solo gigs and this and that, it's a lot of work. And she's one of the best in the business. I love her to death. And nobody does it better. I look up to her as inspiration, because not only did she give me my opportunity, but she's one of the kindest people on the planet. And
that's strong, man. Everybody needs a mentor.
Experience. What?
I said that's strong. Everybody needs a mentor and someone to look up to. And it drives you.
The most valuable thing that I learned from her is everything's done in writing. She's not going to hop on a phone call with you and talk business. Like, if you're solidifying a deal, it's in writing, because if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And that was my first lesson to contracts and doing things. Like, if it's not in writing, it's not going to happen. And we did everything in writing. So it was just a good lesson for me to, always have your facts and details and things like that, because you never know, And so that was a big lesson that I learned from her in that space. And, there was one time we were going out looking at venues where to do shows. And the phone is nonstop, and it's all people wanting to do business with her because of her affiliation with all these mega stars and how talented she is. So it's really fascinating to see somebody at that level and to be so grounded. Doesn't take none of that for granted at all. Because tomorrow, somebody croaks. Well, you're no longer doing a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a really fascinating experience to watch and see her still do it. Her and I met in 2009, and here it is 2023, and she's still fiddling away. So it's pretty cool. And
That's
she's still
interesting.
playing with John. So that's exciting.
That's interesting. Pardon me, the coach comes out in me, but as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking of all the common denominators of what kind of led you to building something of your own, and it seems like the mentorship and trying new things. Like, it doesn't seem like you were very afraid to try new things, and you mentioned before you pivoted many times, but then took anything that you could from all of these mentors in your life, and it drove you kind of towards a common goal that you and I both have, is to build something that is going to leave a lasting legacy, is going to be, a positive, I don't want to say beacon of light, it sounds kind of corny, but it is a beacon of light that people can look to for inspiration and say, you know what, I can do this. I'm no different than Chris. I'm no different than Ryan. The only thing that's holding me back is the fear. So.
And the funny thing is I've never been afraid to try things. Now that I'm older, I'm a lot more methodical in what I'm going to do. But, I always had the mindset, you don't know unless you try. You know what I mean? And that's, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
I don't know why my work phone is calling on a... I'm silencing everything. I didn't expect that, so sorry.
No worries. So you were saying about, you're always having the will to try and not being afraid of things, to try things.
You can't, because that one time you try could work.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I've done a lot of things that have failed. Years ago, I bought into a health club, a gym. Invested a lot of money into it, and
I think I remember that.
It did not work out, and that's just business. And I don't even hold personal grudges. I see my business partner, I say hello, how are you? It was business, and it was personal on the other part of why it failed. But that's neither here nor there. But that was before that was done on a verbal contract deal. And so that's
so you
why
should
I
have learned.
mentioned.
Remember, she taught you how to put everything in writing, and you did a verbal
Well,
contract.
and I did the gym before I had worked with Lorenzo, so it was that kind of just thing, because you just don't think about these things. But my first lesson on a handshake deal cost me $65,000.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. That hurts.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So, you learn.
What was the learning lesson out of that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm curious. What was the learning lesson out of that?
Definitely do a contract. Do more homework. Somebody that I knew that was looking for help to build her business, and I'm very big on wanting to help people and build things. I'm still that way to today. Mm-hmm. The difference is that she wasn't as organized as I thought. And unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So it did dissolve into nothing. The business shut down. She had the courts decided she suffered losses. I suffered losses. We both just go our separate way. So it was a $65,000 lesson to learn, but even though that was such an expensive lesson to learn and such a tragic moment in my life, I still wanted more. And later on in life, I still continued to keep trying and seeking out new things because I really believe success is going to happen one day. And as long as you believe that, it'll eventually happen.
Yeah.
You know, you got to fall 9 times before you get back up at 10. You know what I mean? And that's just the thing. You look at all these wealthy CEOs and celebrities that have failed so many times, you know, like the famous Bon Jovi put record deal after record deal and was getting shot down. His music school teacher told him he couldn't sing. He's now the 6th richest rock star in the world, and you know, at you know, almost $500 million in a net value from a guy in Saraville, New Jersey, he did something right.
Yeah.
But he got kicked in the teeth many times before he got that. What saved him was giving a CD to a DJ at a local radio station. And
I've heard this story.
It was the people that got him to where it, you know, but
that's a lesson in itself, is that nobody can do it
best.
alone. Yeah. That's the biggest lesson in all of this, too, is that not many people can do it alone. At some point, you're going to have to ask for help. You know, you're going to have to start looking to the closest people to you to help you in the things that you're not the strongest with, right? Like, I'm not a marketer. I'm a career coach. You know, I'm not a graphic designer. However, Invisiscope started in 2014 as a web design company, and then it moved into career coaching and private search. So, it's, you know, we talked about earlier that you have to pivot quite a bit. And I think that's the biggest message that your story really showcases, is that you've pivoted so many times and you've gotten knocked down so many times, but there was this constant passion, this constant drive or fire in the back of your mind that said, I'm not giving up. There is something better for me.
Yeah,
and
I was a successful DJ for a very long time. I mean, 1 year I paid for my college. You know what I mean? And that was all word of mouth, zero advertising. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So when you build a business off of that and you do well, you know, but as time goes on, it starts to break down your body. Yeah. It's a lot of lugging. It's a lot of, you know. And again, that was a pivot in from DJing into the music industry, into that world, which I dreamt of doing since I was a kid. You know, I used to hold little concerts in my bedroom for like 2 hours because I wanted to be like my mentor, Bon Jovi. I wanted to be that guy. But I didn't want to be the rock star. I wanted to be the CEO that he is. You know, I wanted to pick his brain, and he built this massive organization from his own vision, and that's what I wanted. I didn't need to be the guy up on stage shaking his ass, and that's why I never took that route. I've written songs. I've released 2 on YouTube, and I have a whole album written, which I still yet to record. I have a Christmas song I want to record. I still love that part of my life. It's just never taken a front seat because I never, you know, I don't need to be that guy. I don't need to be the guy that's getting a pat on the back. But I do love it because it's an outlet. You know, if I suffer a broken heart, I can sit and write that song, and that's my therapy.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue because, you know, you and I always had very similar interests. You know, I mean, the entertainment part of things, and my family comes from an entertainment background as well, but I never saw the glitz and glamour of the bright lights as interesting to me. What I really found interesting was the production of it, was the business side of it, the analytics, what was working, what wasn't working, what can you feed off of and build excitement around. That was always something that drove me. But that is a perfect segue. I would love to hear you talk about how Sleepless Life came into play, because it rapidly became, and I got to get another order from you because we killed that vanilla. That vanilla was awesome. But I would really love you to tell the story of Sleepless Life, because it's one of my most favorite stories about everything that you've done in your life, and I would just love for the listeners to hear that.
Well, the idea is not just coffee. Sleepless Life was a concept that I had for a while of being a brand. Not just a coffee brand. It was coffee to start your day, clothing to make you look good, a fragrance to make you smell good, and then a wine to celebrate your day. That is the vision. That is the circle of life.
I really like that.
And that's been the vision of starting it. But I needed a spot to start out with, something that was like wine is a $50,000 to $100,000 venture just to start, like not even, And then there's licensing and liquor. It's just a ton of work. I did the research on it, so I'm like, well, that's not going to be a first start. Clothing could work, but you got to build a brand for your clothing to be successful. So then there's fragrances, and there's a lot of testing and this and that. Which fragrance are you going to like? And and then again, you have to have a brand to build off of those sales. I could come up with a cologne right now and put it online and say, here you go. There's no guarantee it's going to sell. So the idea was to start with coffee, and coffee is what gives people life. Hence the brand Sleepless Life. So coffee is my slogan is it's not just coffee, it's life, because that's anybody starting their day is drinking a cup of coffee, whether it's regular or decaf. And that's where it started. And I went through some mock-up trials of, not trials, but logos, designing the logo and stuff like that. And I always knew I wanted the Y in life to be like the victory guy, kind of like, yeah. So it took me, the first year, it was just a coffee mug. And it said Sleepless Life. And I got a message from somebody that says, I've seen that somewhere before. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to use that because I want to be original. And so I went back to the drawing board and came up with the new logo that you see there, Sleepless Life with the victory guy. And
yeah, that's a cool logo.
And the funny thing is, Sleepless Life is a business somewhere else, but it's spelled L-I-F-E. And I was like, shit, well, I can't use that, so I gotta change it up. And that's how it came
back to the drawing board.
Sleepless, L-Y-F-E. And so the challenges of starting a business is always research, making sure somebody else doesn't have anything. And it turns out that there's a clothing brand called Life. And it's spelled just like that. So initially we had t-shirts that just said Life on it, L-Y-F-E. And I'm like, can't use that, scrap that, take that off the shelf, and then we have to put Sleepless on it to... so there's a lot of challenges when starting and building this brand, because that's the last thing you need to do is get sued for copyright infringement, and then so I'm always cautious of that, and I learned that from my music world of stealing somebody else's song and things like that. So I don't know, I want to say January of, let's see, I started, Sleepless Life officially went live in September 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I got called back to like one of my jobs that September. Like they were reopening back up. And I was like, really? Like, I just put all this work into building this brand, and now I got to go back to work and build,
Yeah.
Which is good, though. You need money to pay the bills. So
a little bit of a necessity,
just a little bit. So in the initial launch, the reception was actually not too bad for, you get the question of, what makes your coffee so great, and these typical questions like, why should I buy your coffee? Because you know me, that's why. Support me, that's why you buy it. Now, and that was coming from friends,
truer words. So, no truer words.
But that was my thinking when it's my friends asking me these questions. Like, just support me. I go and buy something that you're selling every time. But the true statement that I made a long time ago, whether it's music, whatever you're doing, the people that you know will not support you. It's the people that don't know you are your biggest supporters. And that's the truest statement ever. When I started in music, my family hated it. They wanted me to not do music at all, and they were against it. And people thought it was a horrible choice because it's such an unstable world. But you know what? At the end of the day, a lesson. I'm going to backtrack real quick because I'm going to be a little all over the place. But the lesson I learned when my father died, okay, is you got one shot at life, and you live it to the
Man, I
fullest.
love that.
Because my father was retired for 10 years before he died. He got to enjoy his life in those 10 years. First of all, I don't want to wait until I'm in my 60s, and I don't only want 10 years of enjoying life. That was my lesson from my father passing away.
Repeat that message from your father again for me. You've got one life, and then go, repeat that message for me.
Yeah, you have one life, and you got one opportunity, and you live it to your fullest, and that's honest to God truth. And that was why I took the leap. So going back into the music statement, I had a full-time job while I was working in music and touring and all that stuff. And in 2015, I was offered to manage a tour. And I left the job. I'm making like $60,000 a year, and I was miserable. I was unhappy. I was fighting with my family. There was just a lot going on in that period of my life. And I said, something's got to give. And I loved my family too much to X them out, so I quit the job. And I went on the road for the next 3 months, and it was life-changing.
Scary
Life-changing.
time, yeah.
It wasn't about the money. It was about my happiness. And that's what it was for me. I had never been happier. I was in a different city every day, hanging out with people 24/7. And so, when you look into building a life of success and wanting to achieve the great things, you also have to take into accountability your happiness, your mental state. Because you could do all this. You could build the biggest company and the best brand. But if you're not happy, what good is it? And that was the value and the take back that I had from my father passing away. And that's why I worked in music for all these years. That's why I still work with Janet Gardner, because I still want a taste of it. I still want to be a part of it. And who knows, maybe someday I'll dive back into it. I don't know. But for right now, you have to be happy. And having a business, building a business, and having a day job, I'm now at that crossroads of trying. My day job is becoming more demanding because I'm moving up in the company. And my business is becoming more demanding because I changed the game of how I'm operating my business. So when you talk about pivot, you go into starting and you're looking to see what's working, what's not working. And there was, I had a guy that wanted to be a partner. And I gave him the opportunity to be the partner. And unfortunately, I couldn't babysit in that opportunity. Love the guy to death, but, it's just not for him, not in this point in time. So you go back to now being the only guy running a corporation. It's in January, decided to purchase my own equipment, my own roasting equipment and things like that, and not outsource that part of the business, because when you outsource that part of the business, you're losing a lot of your profits.
Right.
And how do you grow? How do you build a business off of a $10 profit? You can't.
It's very hard.
Yeah, and so that is the challenge in growing a business is figuring out what's working, what's not working. You have to be patient. The one thing that I urge anybody that listens to this and wants to do this is definitely figure out the finances. Because even when I was working in music, when you go on tour, you can make good money. But you can wait 6 months before that next tour. So you've got to space out that money. You've got to find other work. You've got to find other opportunities to pay the bills. And that's the challenge. That's why these celebrities make these acts make the kind of money. Granted, they have the money to begin with, but, you still need to figure out your finances. And that's the number one thing. I started this in COVID, never realizing what the financial uptake in running and maintaining a business is. Spent a lot of money in marketing and advertising. Got zero return. I paid one company to run an ad for me. Paid them $600. They took the money and ran. So I could either go to court and fight for that money, or just cut my losses and keep going. And that's what I did, because it would have cost me more money to go to court for $600 rather than.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies know that. They know that.
On the other side of the coin, I mean, look what you were able to do. I mean, you've got a contract deal with a stadium. You're in there for what, a couple of years or a year?
This is my first full season with them. I did a half a season last year with them. And thanks to Instagram and me running an ad on Instagram is how I was discovered. So you just never know when your opportunity is going to come. So I got a message from this guy Steven at the Patriots, which is a minor league to the New York Yankees. Mm-hmm. And he's like, would you be interested in advertising at our ballpark? And I'm like, well, do you sell coffee at your ballpark? And he's like, yeah, but hot coffee doesn't really do too well in the summer and this and that. I said, but I have cold brew. What's cold brew? I says, well, let's chat. So I explained what cold brew is. It's a coffee that has to steep for 12 to 24 hours in the grinds. It's like a coffee version of a tea bag, essentially. Mm-hmm. When you steep tea, it gets stronger the longer it steeps. It a lot. So this is what cold brew essentially is, and it builds a stronger caffeination, but the acidity diminishes over time. So it's a bolder, smoother taste. And that's what people like, because a lot of people don't like the acidity, so it becomes less acidic, but people love the caffeine and the energy that it gives them, so it's like a win-win. So in the summer months, people don't want to drink a hot coffee. Some do. I still enjoy a hot cup of coffee in the summer.
I do too. But a night game? Yeah.
And that's the thing. So went to the drawing board, put a whole presentation together for the Patriots of how we can make this work. 5-gallon dispenser, and it's a 2-week expiration. We went through this whole thing of how easy and efficient it could be for the ballpark. We sell them a 5-pound bag of coffee, so there's no measuring. We pour the 5 pounds in this container, which has this giant tea bag thing, and you fill it up with water, and they let it brew for 12 to 24 hours. They put it out, and they serve the cold brew. So in its first half season, Sleepless Life Cold Brew was out selling Dunkin' every night.
That's awesome.
That's a phenomenal statement to make right there.
It is.
So the model that we had with the ballpark is that I wholesale the coffee to them. They sell it per cup. They offer me my own concession stand, but they'll staff it. So it was a win-win. So Sleepless Life has an official concession stand at the Somerset Patriots ballpark in Bridgewater, New Jersey. Go try it.
That's what's cool too, is that you don't have to worry about head count, and you don't have to worry about staffing and things like that, because in that deal they'll handle all the staffing. You've got the label, you've got the brand of coffee, and you're selling Sleepless Life into a stadium where, what is the capacity of that stadium? It's got to be
8,000. I think it can hold up to 8,000 people.
8,000.
I think
that's
so,
a lot of fans. You know what I mean? Of Sleepless Life. That's a lot of potential to grow, because even if they tell 5 people, the numbers compound, and you start building it to be huge. That's an incredible statement to make, of that we outsold Dunkin'. That's huge. And that's what a lot of the listeners, I hope, will take away from this, is that why can't you make something and it outsell a corporate giant? Why not? Who's to say you can't?
And that for me, that was one of the biggest achievements in my life. First of all, I never imagined getting my brand into a baseball stadium. let alone a minor league to the New York Yankees, which I'm a fan of the Yankees. So I'm like, all right, let's go.
Me
so,
too.
And they won the championship last year. So not only to have a cold brew, I'm with a champion team, and this year they won the midterm championships, and we're headed towards another championship again.
Now, can you
very
use
exciting.
in your marketing, just out of curiosity, can you use the Somerset Patriots logo in your marketing, or the Yankees logo in your marketing? You can?
I can.
That's a gold mine
The
right
reason
there.
why I can is because my coffee
I hope none
is
of the
sold in that
lawyers are
stadium.
listening to this and like, no, shut them down.
Yeah, probably. I'll get a call Monday, Ryan, you can't do that. Cut it out. But on my brochure, I have a brochure too. Hold on, let me get it so I can show you guys. All right. So, on the brochure, you can see here, I got the Somerset Patriots logo, TD Bank Ballpark, because that's where the cold brew sold. I have an image of the concession stand there that's in the ballpark. So that's how I merged the two. I just don't slap a New York Yankees and Patriots logo on something and say cold brew, because that's where I'll get in trouble. But because I sell my coffee at their ballpark and they're a minor league to the New York Yankees, and in fact, I was even generous. I didn't even put the Yankees logo on here. I just put the Patriots. But I could, and it could, it validates things.
I don't think it's more of a question of you could. I think you should. I mean, that's a massively successful baseball brand that goes back to the 1800s, I think.
Well, it's funny, because this season, right before they opened, the Yankees were doing their walkthrough of the stadium, and one of the guys was like, "What's Sleepless Life?" And they're like, "It's cold brew." And he's like, "Ooh, I'm a big fan of cold brew." So I don't know if he ever tried it or whatever, but...
One of the players?
No, one of their corporate people.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so... You never know. I could get a call one day and say we want this in Yankee Stadium, and I'll have a heart attack, so they'll never get their coffee because I'll die of excitement. But that's, it's a challenge right now because I'm one guy running this corporation, and being there a full season. So moving fast forward, we've expanded what we put into the ballpark. So,
Cool. Smart.
Every year I'm thinking of something new. So last year in the half season, I came up with frozen cold brew and cold brew milkshakes.
I remember this. I remember you calling me and telling me about this. I was excited.
Very, very delicious. So this year we put frozen cold brew on the menu. I wanted them to upsell it. They felt keeping it the same price was fine, which was whatever. That's their business. And I added my organic, regular, and decaf to the baseball suites. So now in the suites, they're getting fresh served coffee, which they didn't have before. Because what they currently have is it's this boxed coffee that sits in a machine, and it mixes with the hot water into the cup. It's not a very appetizing cup of coffee. So this year, back in January, I decided to start my own roasting, so I started roasting the organic and decaf blends for the ballpark. But I've surpassed last year's sales with the ballpark. And so they've ordered so much more this year, the demand is higher. And it takes me 45 minutes to roast a pound of coffee. So when they're talking 30 pounds of coffee that they order from me, that's 30 hours of coffee roasting, and it's a process. You're roasting, then you're cooling the beans, and you're sifting the beans, and you're grinding the beans, and you're packaging the beans. So this is where the new pivot comes in. Is now I need to get more people to help me, manufacture.
Now you're in expansion, or you're
expansion.
hiring now.
So The other thing is that the property that I had running the business out of, the owner passed away, unfortunately. Very close family friend. So we now had to
I'm sorry to
vacate
hear
that location. So now I'm in the process of looking for a new location to not only keep business operations running. I'm in my new makeshift office here now. And I've kept my distributor's coffee. Like, I kept the coffee up online that the distributor does just because I need that backup right now. I need the help of other people to do that. So I'm in the process of now doing a brand new business plan, and a business plan is very important because it helps you keep organized and figure out what you're going to do with your business. And I actually wrote the business plan after I started the business. I'm a little backwards, but it worked. But now I'm at that crossroads of I'm moving up in my company, and my business is getting busier, which is a wonderful thing. So at some point,
Yeah.
there's decisions that I'll have to come from that. But I am in the process of looking for funding and seeking out a business loan. I spoke to a lender, and he wanted a more in-depth business loan. He wanted everything soup to nuts. Like, if it's going to cost 5 more nails, what are those 5 more nails going to be? And he's like, do you want to have a brick and mortar, or do you want to have a distribution center? And, he's like, you've got a lot of great ideas with your brand, but he goes, I need you to narrow it down to one singular thing. He goes, let's narrow it down to one thing that we can do, and then we can work on building out that brand.
Yeah.
And
That's how it's done.
yes.
They have one specialization, one thing that you do and you do well, and then you can expand once you have the notoriety, once you have that, that know, like, and trust, popularity from your customers, then you can start expanding out. So it's smart way to do it.
It is, and it was something that I didn't think about because I didn't want to be pigeonholed just for coffee because I knew I wanted to build a brand. But
I'm waiting on the wine, man. I'm waiting on the wine.
and
I'm a big
I know
wine
some
fan.
people that have wineries, so vineyards and stuff. A beautiful dream of mine. My friend Lorenza she's planted grapes on her farm.
Listen, I'll test any Merlot or
And
Cabernet you got.
I would love to be like Lorenza. Let's work together. But I'm nowhere near that. Like I would love to support. In fact, she has a bee farm in Maryland, and she sells honey. It's the best honey ever. So
She's right next door to me.
Our wee farm, yeah, she's our wee farm. Yeah, it's wee farm something. I'm gonna get that for you so we
Yeah,
can
let
share
me
it
know.
for people.
Yeah.
Because the honey is fantastic. It's got this like perfect little nectar taste to it. Oh God, so good. Anyway, backtracking back to me.
We do that, don't we?
I love supporting people and helping people. Like I just do. But I forgot where I left off.
So we were talking about narrowing your business plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're narrowing the business plan down to, I think what I'm planning on doing now is a distribution model.
That's perfect, because I was going to ask, what's next for Ryan Galway in Sleepless Life?
That is what I'm working on. I'm plotting out a distribution model and looking to potentially bottle the cold brew and have a beverage truck, which doesn't currently exist. I mean, I'm sure it exists somewhere. Mm-hmm. But I went to a fireworks thing a couple weeks ago, and there's all these food trucks. And I'm like, I could go for some cold brew. So the plots and the plans, that's kind of what I'm looking at. And then at my distribution site, where we're making the coffee, we could have the truck open as a brick and mortar. People can stop by in their car, get a coffee, and keep going.
Forgive me if I mess this up, but doesn't Dogfish Head Brewery do the same thing? They have a distillery and a brewery right there, but they also have an outdoor area where you can sit and you can sample some of their new brews. I mean, I know it's different coffee to beer, but that same model, it sounds familiar in my mind, and it's from what I've seen. I mean, I've been down here a couple of years. It's super successful. Yeah,
I'm trying to do something that's out. I'm always big on doing things outside the box, something different. The brick and mortar model is still a vision, but I feel if I start with the truck and I build across the state of New Jersey of people seeing the brand, that model alone, just the truck model, will be franchisable. And that's one of my goals, is to franchise. And I have franchising companies that want to work with me, but I don't have a model good enough to set up to say, yes, let's start doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you got to think that out first. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea was either to go to brick and mortar model or this model, which I think seems a little more achievable. Real estate right now is obnoxious. Rentals are obnoxious. Like the inflation has gone through the roof. So that's the challenge right now in building a business, and I think that's a challenge for any business right now, is inflation.
Yeah.
You know, keeping costs down, but still bringing in revenues, and how you're going to hire people and stuff like that. It's a very, very big challenge right now, because you still want to be affordable. You still want people to buy your products, but how do you do it to where it makes sense? You know what I mean? And that's, I could open up a brick and mortar, and there's one down the street from me that opened up, and I never see anybody in there. So that's bad planning, if you ask me. I have a whole business plan of, you want to bring people in. You just don't want to open shop and pray they're going to come. No. It's not Field of Dreams.
There was, if I could just interject for a second, there was something that, as you're thinking about this, it's sparking a memory. And I remember Angela Ahrendts. She was the CEO of Burberry, and she joined forces with Apple a few years ago, and they wanted to change the Apple brick and mortar retail experience. Didn't want it to be necessarily just a storefront where people come and buy products, but she was trying to rebrand into Apple town halls, and to have people come and have experiences where they learn from iPad experts how to use their iPad in their day-to-day life, or how to use their iPad to create something. Same with phones, same with Mac, same with some of their other products. And as you're saying this, that's what's popping in my head, is that, you know, Sleepless Life in a brick and mortar could be the marriage of your two passions, right? Music, entertainment, and then the
that's
coffee
exactly
as well.
It. I wanted to, two of my favorite shows. One is Friends. You know, I love the coffee house vibe, you know, and Cheers, where everybody knows your name. So the concept is to build a place that has a bar actually in it. And it's a legitimate coffee bar, but with lounges in place and provide entertainment. There was a diner in East Brunswick, New Jersey, called the Seville Diner that closed down many years ago. And that,
one of my
to me,
favorites.
was like a perfect venue. Like, my idea was the back room would be the stage, and I still have all my sound and lighting production from when I was putting on productions and lighting and things like that. I'm a big geek when it comes to building a great production. But anyway, was to set that up and then gut all the booths out of the place and put tables and couches, and it still had the diner bar, so you could keep that up. People could come sit, and I want it to be a place of gathering. And I notice a lot of coffee places are closing early now. They close at 5 o'clock. I want a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock, and I can't get one because they're all closed. You know, and there's no place for younger people to go. And also, not everybody wants to go to a bar and get drunk. So this is my philosophy. I want to build a place where people can come, they can chill, they can work on their reports during the week. On a Friday and Saturday night, they can come see a musician or a comedian and enjoy themselves. And during the week, have networking events for businesses.
I really hope some of the audience hears this, and you're going to have investors like crazy, man, because I love that idea. And especially in a place, I know the Seville Diner very, very well, and it was one of my favorite places to go. And, I mean, killer club sandwiches there. I mean, the killer.
Mozzarella sticks would have died for.
Oh, they really were. They really were. They were excellent for, you know, after going out with your friends at night, and you go there, and you could just go nuts. But I hope that some investors really hear this and, you know, reach out to you in something like that, because from excuse me, from the arts perspective, and bringing back something that's a little bit more subdued, rather than going all in and getting drunk and hammered, and you wind up going to get coffee anyway after you get hammered.
Well, and that's the plan. My coffee shop isn't going to close at 5 o'clock. On Monday through Thursday, it'll probably be open till like 11. Mm-hmm. And then on a Friday and Saturday night, we're closing at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Because it's an entertainment space.
Yeah.
You don't have to get a cup of coffee there. You'll be able to get a bottle of water or a soda or, a non-caffeinated beverage and things like that. I was also working with a girl who's a pastry chef and looking to collaborate and have her sell her pastries in the brick and mortar.
You're going to make me move back to Jersey, aren't you?
Trying. Although I don't know if I want to stay here. The state is ridiculous.
Oh, it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy, man.
It is. But I think the concepts of both ideas are very, very successful. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of I put a lot of thought into this. I look at what other people are doing and the mistakes they're making. There's a place in Jamesburg that opened up. It's doing very well. A lot of people are there. So, but they did a lot more advertising than the place that opened up down the street. So it's getting in front of people, but it's also tying in with the community. And if you can tie in with the community,
that's important.
It's a big part of the game. If you're going to be setting up a shop, whatever business you do in a local town, and if you don't get involved with the community, you're not going to last.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of lead into another question, because you and I can go, we can go all day. But I want to lead into that question, and you're good at this. You just perfectly segued into, if there's a message for anyone that is at their wit's end, they're looking to walk away from corporate America, or they're looking to start something that gives them passion. Because there are stories of people that start something as a side hustle of their own. It reinvigorates their work life on the other side, or their day job, because now they're working on their passion and want to apply that same passion to their day job and build them both together. There's a lot of people that do that. So for anyone that is kind of on the fence or thinking of wanting to build something of their own, you've done it. What's your best advice for people that are in that crossroads?
I'm still doing it, to be honest, but first of all, it's your happiness. You got to find within your soul of where you want and what you want to be. And it's not going to be easy. It's not a walk in the park. I'm not telling somebody, quit your day job and dive into this. Build your money up. Look into what other people are doing. Look into what you can do. If you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen. But the thing is you got to keep your mental state at a good point. Because there are times where, I'm roasting 15 pounds of coffee and the whole world is out having fun, and I'm stuck behind a roaster roasting coffee on a Saturday and Sunday. That'll screw with your head, because it'll burn you out. You will get frustrated, and it'll come to a point of well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should just give up. And and I'm at a crossroads. I'm at a job that I absolutely love. I'm very fortunate that I have this job. I get to work from home, and I'm moving up within a company ladder. So one of my visions when I was younger was I wanted the corporate job. I wanted to move up. I wanted to be able to make six figures. There's that opportunity. And now I've built this brand that I've invested $30,000. I'm about $35,000 into it right now. And it's I just can't let it go. So it's not an easy choice for anybody, and I have a lot of people saying, just sell the business and walk away. And I'm but you're not the one that just put $30,000 into building a brand. It's a lot of money. And it's a lot of time, it's a lot of sweat equity. But when you look at what could become. This brand started from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Started from a phone call.
It goes from a concept, and this is what I love about building a business, because you take a concept and an idea, and when you start putting pen to paper, and you start building out that concept, and you start getting reactions and feedback. I did a taste testing at the ballpark. The reviews were beyond my expectations. You know, I'm currently dealing with a medical issue right now. I've been in and out of the hospital and stuff. So this is where you also have to be prepared for when taking on a business. Is what if something happens? You know, and it could happen to any one of us. So you want to have that backup plan, you know. And that's what I'm in the stages of figuring out right now. I've got this nerve issue that just won't go away. But I'm the only guy running the business. So if you want to build a successful business, build a team. You know, put a team together. Start from there. And that I found, like when I was working with Matt, there were times we were very on point, very successful, because it was a collaboration, it was teamwork. If you're one guy, it's very, very hard, and that's where I'm at the point right now. I just had a meeting with somebody the other day, asking if they would be interested in working with me and so on and so forth. I'm like, it's not set in stone yet, you know, don't, you know. I'm still putting things together. I got to finish this business plan, submit it, and see where it goes. I've been rejected a lot with this business in as far as lending and things like that, because I'm so new, and you know, so there's struggles. And my question is, how the hell do these people start businesses and get loans right away? It's like mind-boggling, you know. But it happens, and you can't get discouraged. You know, you just have to keep pivoting, which I think with our podcast, when you were on my show, I think that was the title of the podcast, The Pivot.
It was.
So it's a crucial word.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be okay with change. You got to be okay with change, and you got to be okay to recepting opinions and advice, but still stay true to who you are and what you want, because that's the thing.
Amen to that.
It's the truth, you know. I've had a lot of people say I should do this or should do that, and I'm like, I appreciate your opinions and some advice I have taken, but I know where this brand needs to go, and I know the vision it needs to take, and it is a mammoth of, you know, most people start with clothes, or they're opening up a coffee shop or a pizzeria. Yeah, there's foods that generally are general, and they go into those menus. I'm taking a brand and adding 4 separate things that are completely different from each other. So that's a challenge. You know, when you take something, with the coffee, I know I can add flavored cold brew. I could add flavored coffees. You know, you could add all those things in there. But when you're taking your brand and you're starting it from scratch, you got to start with one point and slowly branch out. So, you know, pick that one thing, like my lender told me. Pick one thing and do your homework, you know, and find people that are as passionate as you are. Then find the people that are smarter than you are. And I think you can have success. And I'm trying to find people smarter than me.
There's the gold in it, too. I mean, because any monster in industry or monster in building a business has always said, you know, pal around with the people that are much better than you are in the things that you don't know. And be able to accept, you know, that they are smarter, and be able to accept the advice that they give you.
My boss in my day job is a genius businessman, very, very smart. And I take a lot of what he puts out, and I absorb it like a sponge, you know. Like when I worked with Lorenza, she's been in the business, you know, for a very long time. Like, she's been working with Bon Jovi since 2001, when 9/11 happened. So you look at the people that inspire you, and you follow their habits of how smart of business people they are. Great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I listened to the audiobook. It's a great thing to listen to. find the resources. If you're in music and you want to be in management, Paul Allen, music management. You got to find the tools that are going to help you become a better version of you.
Yeah, that's the gold in it, man, right there. Well, Ryan, thank you so much, man, for being a guest. You definitely solidified that meaning of being the broken mold. I mean, you've jumped into everything under the sun.
I broke
and
the
you're not
mold,
quitting.
and I'm a little cracked, but that's all right.
That's all right. We got super glue. I can fix that up real quick.
Exactly.
But thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind just telling all the listeners where they can find you, and more importantly, where can they support Sleepless Life and buy some of the vanilla that I love so much?
Sleeplesslife.com. That's sleeplesslyfe.com. Or you can go to ryangalway.com. ryangalway.com. If you have music questions regarding music, I'm always helping people and just giving them tips and advice and things like that. JanetGardnerMusic.com for Janet Gardner. Lorenza Ponce for her honey. Get her honey at LorenzaPonce.com. So, all right, yeah, and AmazingKreskin.com. All right, I've
Diversify.
I diversified. Go visit all those wonderful, great people. I love them to death.
Awesome, man.
But
awesome.
Thank you for having me. This has been a true pleasure being on the show, and I wish you a lot of success, my friend, because this is a great thing you're doing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And for all the broken molders, I can't even use that. I'm going to have to find something a little bit better. But thank you very much for listening, and dag it ace. See you again.